So today, the power of storytelling. You may have heard me talk about analogies, you may have heard me talk about storytelling before, but I wanted to use today to talk about them because, again, they have such a powerful place in learning. So think back to the last training session you attended. You remember the bullet points on the slides? Or do you remember a story the trainer told? Now, if you only have the bullet points, then hopefully you remembered some. But if you had a great trainer, then you'll have stories, you'll have hooks, you'll have maybe some analogies, like we've said. But that's the bit that's going to be memorable. Because the truth is, stories stay with us because we are human, because we want to make connection, and other people's stories stay with us and ours with them. And that's why it's one of the most powerful tools we have as teachers, trainers, and leaders. So why does it work so well for learning? Well, it comes back to emotion. Facts make us think, but stories make us feel. And emotion is so much more powerful when it comes to making memory stick. Stories create connection. We see ourselves in the characters, or maybe we see others we know. The challenges that are being faced, maybe we've overcome them too, and the journeys people have been on, we automatically think to our own journey and where that's taken us. And suddenly, learning isn't abstract, it's personal. Stories create meaning. They give context, they help us to understand not just what to do, but why it matters. So why should we use it in training? Well, if I think to when I design training, I use stories not as an extra, but really as the spine that holds everything together. They're the core of the training I'm going to deliver. If I want to explain a leadership principle, I'll use a story of a leader who faced a real decision. In fact, generally my own. If I want to introduce a classroom strategy, I might tell the story of the teacher who tried it, what happened, what challenges they had to overcome, so it can help people see to what might happen to them. But ultimately, how did that resolve itself and why will it have such an impact? And even when I explain concepts, you can wrap them up, and I certainly do, wrap them up in mini stories, a journey, a problem, a choice, a resolution. Because people might forget the slides or the concepts or the theorist, but what they won't forget is the story of the leader on the ridge or the teacher who needed to find a compass. And it's not just about memory. Stories shape culture. When leaders tell stories of resilience, teamwork, innovation, they're not just sharing information, they're setting the tone for what we value and how we behave. And that connection to leaders, that ability to tell stories, their willingness to be vulnerable is so important in building a culture that's going to make a difference. And that's why every culture, from the smallest team to the biggest organisation, is built on the stories it tells and retells. So if you want your training to have lasting impact, don't just deliver information, deliver stories. Because stories don't just teach. They connect, they inspire, and they make learning unforgettable. And they take us back to a place in our childhood, for many of us, which is a really happy place. So next time you design a session, ask yourself, what story will they remember?